Welcome to today's webinar, sponsored by the New York State Association of Counties in conjunction with the State University of New York and its Chancellor, John King. I am very pleased to announce our speaker today, who is the Vice Chancellor for Workforce Development and Upward Mobility. Love that title, Christopher White. But before I get into introducing Vice Chancellor White, let me just welcome all of you from the counties that are with us here today. This seminar, this session, this discussion, and we hope it will be a discussion. We need your questions. We just don't want to hear Vice Chancellor White talking about the great ideas and concepts that he will present today. He wants to hear from you. He needs to hear from the communities. He needs to hear what industries are emerging in your county. He wants to know that so that he could talk to the chancellor himself. He can talk to the various presidents of the colleges at the state university level, the community colleges and the SUNYs across the state to try to help bridge those employment gaps. This session, tapping into SUNY's talent, Solutions for a Critical Workforce Gaps. That's the title of it. And that's a great title because it does talk about the critical workforce gaps. Chris, as you and I were chatting a few moments ago, we do have gaps at the county level with the federal employees being displaced in Washington, D.C., the state of New York, and the counties. We have a lot of unmet needs, whether they're department heads in IT, public health, human resources, law, all different areas in the district attorney, in the office of the sheriff, public health, mental health. We have a need in our DPW. So this session is extremely timely, and I'm very grateful for this partnership with the State University of New York. My name is Stephen Aquario. I'm the Executive Director of the State Association of Counties, and I want to thank and commend our president, the Honorable Benjamin Boykin, from Westchester County. He's a lawmaker from Westchester, a strong supporter of Westchester County and its community college, but also of the State Association. And Benjamin Boykin wishes everyone a hello and a thank you for joining us. And he wanted me to remind everyone that this is NYSAC's centennial year. We turn 100 years in 1925, and we're very proud of that. He also wanted me to remind everyone that our parliamentarian, the Honorable Herman Geist, also turns 100 years old on April 5th. So if you know Herman Geist, send him an email. He'd love to hear from you. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us for this important discussion about the invaluable workforce resources that are offered by the State University of New York. As we work to address the critical workforce shortages across industries, SUNY is playing a pivotal role by connecting students from campuses statewide to employers in the public, private, not-for-profit sectors, helping to build a sustainable pipeline of employment. Today, you'll hear about some of the latest insights from SUNY's Office of Workforce Development and Upward Mobility, including key findings from their workforce survey data. We'll also explore the available resources to help you connect with and hire interns and as Chris mentioned, also permanent positions post-college. Discuss how you could tap into the SUNY system to fill your essential workforce gaps in your county, but also in the private sector in your county. Let me introduce Chris White. Chris brings a wealth of experience in workforce development, communications, public policy. Most recently, he served as the Deputy Commissioner of Workforce Development at the New York State Department of Labor, where he provided strategic leadership in shaping and executing workforce development initiatives. In this role, Christopher was instrumental in building strong external partnerships and ensuring smooth coordination across the SUNY system administration and its 64 colleges and university. Chris played a key role in advancing SUNY's goal of ensuring that all undergraduate students complete an internship or other high-quality experiential learning opportunity prior to earning their degree. I want to again extend my thanks to SUNY Chancellor John King, a wonderful chancellor who's working very closely with the counties and our community colleges. Recognize Alexandra Regan, who will be helping us here from the NYSAC staff on the Q&A side of this. I want to encourage you to submit your questions into the chat line or question line right on your dashboard there. And Alexandra will get to those questions right after Chris speaks. So let me introduce Chris White.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Stephen, and thanks everyone for being on. And I will say the Chancellor sends his regards, as well as other members of our senior staff. The partnership between NYSAC and SUNY is wonderful, and we're going to build on it and continue to grow it. And all of you, with Stephen at the helm, are really key and part and parcel to making that happen. So thank you so much. I know a number of county leaders and folks who are doing a lot of this incredible work already, because I spent a dozen years before I got here at the New York State Department of Labor working with local workforce development boards all across the state. So my perspective coming into SUNY and really where I'm approaching things today is from a position of really intimate knowledge of the gaps that are out there, but it's doubly so because of data that we've collected, which I'm definitely going to get into and more than happy to share. So with that, let's see if I can advance. Aha, look at that, magic. So let me talk, I'll talk a little bit about the new office. I'm gonna run through some things because I have found that there is a lot of great stuff happening and not everybody knows about it. Shock, right? But that's the world we live in. There's so much information out there. So I figure I will talk about the new office, talk about some of the great things we're bringing together as part of the new office. I'm gonna share some data with you. It's not boring, I promise. It's really interesting data. And then I'm going to talk about I think the crux of this, which is getting work-based learning opportunities, specifically internships, but really the spectrum of ways we can engage with county government. And then because you play so many different roles in your areas, ways that, you know, as you're hearing need, we can help meet it and get you to the right people and partners within SUNY, and then folks we work with as well. So here are the elements that are within my new office. So Chancellor's vision is create this brand new office, and I'm really honored. I'm 4 months in now to the role of Office of Workforce Development and Upward Mobility. So Chancellor has a vision that everybody, every undergraduate within SUNY has some kind of experiential learning, like an internship, before they graduate. So huge need there. We you know, really have needs there. I'm going to get into that as like the last thing, because I think there's just so much to talk about and some key takeaways for us there. We also have a number of other elements within our office, and I'll go through each of them. Things like small business development centers, which I know a lot of us are really aware of and focused on, but we do some great work there. We have a dozen educational opportunities. These are for low-income folks across the state to help them connect to kind of pre-college and trade learning. We have Attain Labs, so these incredible technology labs where anybody can go in and get credentials and learn about digital literacy. I oversee registered apprenticeship at SUNY as well. So a really incredible training model that we use. When I was at Department of Labor, I know I worked with a lot of folks, including some counties and other municipalities, on standing up registered apprenticeship programs. We were the regulator, and now at SUNY we get to grow it in a bunch of different ways, which is cool. And micro-credentials. I see this as such an incredible opportunity for upskilling, because jobs are changing. We have workforce needs for our current workers to ensure they're stepping up in their own careers, or their jobs are shifting and we need to give them new skills. So incredible things there. And kind of what we're doing today. So working with employers of all sorts and making sure that we are ultimately meeting your needs. That's the goal of public university system, is get people prepared for the future, get people prepared for jobs, and you are all really key to making that happen. So with that, I will jump into the first one, which is our small business development centers. So a number of you may be familiar with this. We have 20 of them across the state, and then dozens and dozens more satellite centers, so smaller centers in partnership with chambers of commerce in many instances. We have a huge footprint. Over the past probably 40 or so years, we have had a direct impact working with small businesses to connect them into resources, into banks and expertise and funding and growth and jobs and workers all across the state. So this network really has this incredible team of experts who every single day are working with small businesses. And I know that our county partners are feeder systems into our small business development center. So if you do not know a regional small business development center, please let me know. Happy to connect you in. But they are hungry for more opportunities, and from an economic development standpoint, just a huge, I think, need out there to work on things like business plans. We have an explosion in entrepreneurship entrepreneurship all across the country. How do we help entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs do it well, do it successfully? So developing marketing plans, developing financial planning opportunities, connecting in with finance and loans, right? Like really helping to meet the huge needs out there. That's the role of the Small Business Development Center. So we're doing that in a lot of different ways, a lot of different workshops. So would love to connect you in on that as is helpful. I mentioned educational opportunity centers. That this seems to be this really underknown, not unknown completely, but just not as well known resource. We have a dozen sites across the state, particularly in more urban areas, but they provide a wide range of resources in their area, helping people complete high school, get the high school equivalency. In many cases, we're providing ESL or ESOL, English for speakers of other languages, helping them learn English and grow those skills, which you know is really, really important these days, especially for a lot of immigrants or refugees who've come to our state. We also provide a wide range of, and all of this, by the way, no cost, right, to someone who is low income, but we provide lots of different academic training programs. So huge need, and for any of you who are hiring, math and English and other type of fundamental skills, fundamental for so many jobs out there, we're providing a lot of that rudimentary training. For sure. And then lots of trades training. Think of things like cosmetology, like construction, like culinary. Many of our educational opportunity centers have incredible programs. It's all geared to be specifically connected to industry need in each of the areas. So I like to tell people about this because I think it's important to let them know about these type of services that are out there. We also have attached to educational opportunity centers, and then many cases attached to other partners as well, Attain Labs. So these are high-end computer labs. We have more than 30 of them across the state. Digital literacy, as you'll see when I share some data, is a huge need out there. So helping people connect to digital literacy learning options, right, like basic computer use, but then lots of different types of assessments to test your skills so you can see where you need to grow your skill set when it comes to computers, and then lots of certifications. So big need out there. I hear from lots of people, I need to learn Excel, I need to learn Word, I need to learn PowerPoint. We have those sort of certifications. QuickBooks as well, right? Accounting, huge need. We have those type of certifications. Again, these are no cost, right? Taxpayer funded, state funded, but they are for anyone who wants to come in and take advantage of these. So I think it's, again, another huge need that we see from current workers and for potential workers is this. So I don't want to go unmentioned for sure. Registered apprenticeship is another, I think, really great opportunity that everyone kind of has heard of, but I want to put a finer point on it. And I remember in the past, we've actually done a number of presentations when I was at Department of Labor with different county leaders around registered apprenticeship. But from a State University of New York perspective, from a SUNY perspective, we play a really crucial role in apprenticeship. So just really quick set on what it is. So it is a job. So you work from day one. And a lot of people think of, you know, plumbers and carpenters and electricians. Still the case. We're working in other industries, which I'll talk about. But you have a job from day one. And it's really two parts to it. So you have hands-on learning. So you work alongside experts and you learn day to day the best practices. And it's a very curated and intentional learning. So you have an agenda of what you need to learn and a curriculum of what you need to learn on the job, and you do that. But then combined with that, there's the theory side and the classroom instruction side. And in many cases, that's where our campuses come in and provide that. We also have supports for many of these pieces as well through dollars. So we can put dollars behind a lot of this type of learning, both through SUNY and also the Department of Labor has some dollars that they've been putting toward a lot of these new types of jobs in different industries. So we can definitely talk about that if of interest, but because it's standardized, it leads to a nationally recognized credential. So we actually work with the US Department of Labor, and all of our apprenticeship programs that we're supporting and talking about end in a credential that someone can take with them. We don't want people to leave their job right once they get trained, obviously, but we find retention spikes when someone's going through these type of programs. So they end up staying longer than they normally would in a job. once they go through an apprenticeship program. So that's kind of cool. So I mentioned on the left side, building construction trades. Yes, those are really important, and those are going to continue to be just incredible models for apprenticeship. They were really the model for decades and decades. But where we're seeing a lot of growth and where we're putting a lot of emphasis is into other trade areas, and these may be of particular interest. For a lot of you directly too. So things like in childcare, in direct support professionals, right? If you're running like nursing homes, for example. We have things like police officers. So I know like in Schenectady County, Schenectady Community College has a program where they're training police officers all around the region through the apprenticeship model. Teachers, huge need for teachers, CDL drivers as well, so truck drivers. So these are all models. And again, you're learning on the job, you're getting the related instruction outside, that theory side, but combined, you're also working during the whole thing. So great model. And if you're interested in any of that, I'd love to make that happen, make some connections for you there. A big part of our work is also around recognizing that learning has to continue, right? Artificial intelligence, technology, automation, a lot of jobs are changing, so people need to be learning throughout their career. So we're supporting that in a number of different ways. The first is through, we call it industry or contract training. We have dollars that we are putting behind this, and it can go to county governments, just a side note, but it can go to support a lot of different types of training for workers who are already in their jobs. What type of training are we talking about? Things like Excel, we're talking about things like blueprint reading, we're talking about things like quality assurance. Really, we can be pretty creative with these dollars, but it's meant to go to an employer and say, you're gonna get, 5, 10, 15, 20 people together in a room, and we're gonna do some additional training. We work with a community college to actually take the leadership on making that training a reality, and we put dollars behind it. So there's a bit of there's like some match from the employer, but we'll put dollars behind it as well. But I think, as we're looking at skill gaps out there, this may be a really interesting solution that we'd like to explore with you. We're doing it right now with a lot of different types of employers, primarily in the public or in the private sector, but also in the not-for-profit sector too. So I think some real opportunity. And then in general, beyond that specific program, our campuses have so many different types of training programs out there that we could really look to connect workers into, be it specific occupational training and certifications, and then lots of different professional development, leadership training, communications training, things like that, that we have at our fingertips that we could help deploy in your county, in your setting, or to folks in your community as you're hearing about these sort of needs. One area in particular where I think there's tremendous success that we've seen and opportunity for further growth is with micro-credentials. So you think of higher education, and I'll be honest, as a higher education outsider for a long time, I had lots of feelings about what higher education was. Really, the reason I am here is to help spread the word about the breadth of opportunity and programs that SUNY has. And this is one of those opportunities here that I think is that there's just so much potential for future growth. So what a kind of four-year degree looks like. A lot of us have a college degree. Those are amazing, and it's going to be continuing powerful, but in many cases, you don't need something that substantial, especially if you've maybe changed careers or your job shifted a little bit. You need some additional training, but not necessarily that level of commitment. But maybe just a one-off class just isn't going to cut it. So micro-credentials are kind of that middle ground. So we have hundreds of them available in pretty much any area you could possibly imagine. And they're meant to be stackable. They're meant to build. We have had great partnerships already in a lot of different areas. One example, again, is just the direct support professionals. So we've had hundreds of folks complete a series of different micro-credentials, and they're really a combination of classes, but meant to be specifically geared to industry need, meant to be specifically geared to the need in areas and in occupations where there's a gap in skills, things are changing, and to get people there. So they're curated and they're customized in a lot of different areas. But like I said, you name it, I guarantee we probably have a micro-credential already, or we can work with you to create one to help get workers into that. We have been doing a lot, I mentioned my office is 4 months old, but we've been doing a lot at SUNY since I got here around trying to reshape what engagement with industry looks like. It's an intentional mission now to get in front of different employers, to get in front of folks and really understand better how we can work together, how we can leverage so many great things happening at our campuses in new ways. And I know a lot of you have great relationships with your campuses already. That's awesome, but folks from your area may be going to campuses in other parts of the state. Maybe campuses in your region are serving students who aren't from your region. So how do we work with businesses? How do we work with industry and employers who may be on a different side of the state from where students are attending campus? That's really where we at SUNY system, SUNY administration in Albany are helping to make that kind of connection. So ultimately trying to create like a front door for our system. That doesn't mean you have to have 64 different relationships with all the different campuses to leverage the power of SUNY collectively. That's my job, and that's really what I want to take on the burden of doing, is come to me and I'll get you to the right place, open up the door to all the different opportunities and partnerships within the SUNY system that are out there. What do these type of engagements look like? So we have a real spectrum of things that we can be taking advantage of. So on the kind of low impact, light engagements, side of things, it's coming in to do, some networking hours with students. Maybe you're going to be speaking to a class, so I can make connections to campus on a particular area. Maybe you have, an engineer who wants to go into one of our classes and talk to engineering students about what realities are looking like in county government these days. Maybe it's going to one of our job fairs at a community college or another campus. Or just setting up an information table for students to walk by to talk about opportunities. Also doing maybe some mock interviews with students, taking part in some career development, reviewing resumes, right? We have some expertise we can share, or doing different sponsorship opportunities on campus to get the name out there as well. Next level up might look like something where you're hosting a series of workshops, a little more time intensive, right? A little more commitment. But again, getting that partnership out there, getting the name out there and opening the door for understanding of what opportunities and real challenges look like today. Maybe you're offering up some real world challenges. So a class could look at your challenge that you're having today and maybe help solve it and work with you. So we're getting that kind of experiential hands-on learning for students, but also helping you solve a problem or address an issue that you're seeing as well. Maybe opening some offices of yours for students who are aligned to come in and see what real jobs are out there, what they look like, what they feel like, what the atmosphere is like. We find that kind of hands-on experience can be really monumental for students and attach them and get their, really pique their interest in ways that sitting in a classroom theoretically learning about stuff may not be able to do. And especially with so many jobs spread all across the state, I think there's a huge opportunity for that, especially in a lot of different industries, a lot of different jobs in areas and occupations where we may not have explored that sort of thing before, or take part in some sort of advisory board where, as we're looking at curriculum, as we're looking at what we're teaching students, making sure it's up to par with the actual needs that you're seeing out there. And then kind of the deepest level of engagement certainly would be things like running an internship program, which I'll talk about, doing capstone projects. These are more intensive projects or research projects where someone's spending a lot more time focused on some issue or some problem that can be, working with us to address, or doing some kind of sponsorship program, having a fellow come in. So a lot of different options here. And I will say, if any of these words do not align with something you're familiar with, I am not asking you at all to learn to speak higher education language. That's not the goal. So ultimately what I want is like, hey, we have this need, we have this desire, we have this program, we have whatever it is. Let me do the navigating on your behalf to help get to the right people and do the translation, because that's not something that I want to put on your plate to have to address. So I'll just be very frank with you on that. The other big thing that we've been doing a lot of, and I think, we mentioned some survey data, that this is a huge need and opportunity to bridge the understanding. And I'll say, look, as someone who worked for a long time in state government, state government was not always the most responsive or had their ear to the ground when it came to needs of industry, and including themselves and public sector as the industry of need. So one of the things we started doing, and SUNY is now part of this initiative, is we're doing annual surveys of employers and annual surveys of job seekers. And this nets us a lot of really good information. And just given the time we have today, I'm not going to go too in depth, but I will share follow-up slides. You don't have to take lots of notes, I promise, on this. But really what we're looking at, and this is going to be year 5 of doing the survey, is we have heard, and it's going to be going out probably later this month is the goal, and I will share that with all of you so you can make sure to weigh in and share it far and wide with any partners you have. But over the first 4 years of the survey, since 2021, peak of COVID, when things were happening, we knew the world was changing. We wanted to capture the sentiment of employers out there. So we've heard since then from almost 11,000 employers, which is awesome. And then we've heard from more than 30,000 job seekers. So real kind of points in time and opinions on what things are going on, what needs are out there, what gaps exist, and I'll share some of that today. So if you're hiring folks, a lot of this is not going to sound all that unfamiliar to you. And I will say, when I was at Department of Labor, I oversaw a staff of 1,100 people spread across the state at 100 different centers. So not only is this interesting to me, it's also very relevant to my past work, and was kind of backing up all the anecdotes that I saw and felt every day. So top challenges for businesses or employers, and it's public, private, nonprofit. When I say business, it's really finding qualified workers. It's really finding new workers. I know these are challenges, right? Stephen mentioned this right off the top. Retention, huge factor there. I know that's the case. I hear it, and then many other factors. And as we look to the future, I think these are going to be persistent, and we're going to see where they shift this year in the survey. I'm sure some national attention is going to come in, especially when we're looking at international relations, and a number of other things related to government regulations, and certainly inflation are going to pop up this year. But these are huge challenges. When it comes to the hardest to fill jobs, we asked employers, what's hardest to fill? And so you can see a couple years ago in last year's results, teacher, yes, teacher, huge need for teachers. They are often the linchpin in our success as we look to the future and training people for different jobs and making sure we're prepared to meet the needs of businesses these days. We need teachers. We need pre-K teachers. We need early childhood education teachers through P12 up into higher education. But then many of these other jobs I know will look familiar to you. About engineers, we need lots of engineers and admins and drivers, and then healthcare galore, certainly across the board. These align in many cases with great trainings that we have available, for sure. They also align with the desires in many instances from what job seekers are looking for across the state as well. When it comes to finding talent, we ask businesses like, what works? So where are you looking for workers? Left-hand column. And they're looking everywhere, trying all the different tools. But what actually works is 2 different things. Indeed, right? Half of businesses say Indeed is the #1 thing that really works when it comes to actually matching to successful hires. But then right above that, the #1 answer, word of mouth, networking, and referrals from current employees. The key here is, and this is a huge mission when I was at Department of Labor and now at SUNY, is connecting students, connecting job seekers into networks to build, right? Into making those personal connections. Yes, technology is great at sorting resumes and elevating workers, as you're going through and looking to hire people. But that personal connection is something we hear so much about as being necessary to kind of validate, is this person's resume really real? Can I trust it? The interview was good. Do I know someone who knows this person, or maybe knows the organization, or can validate their skills? That's what we're hearing a lot of. So despite technology, which is great, there's still that personal connection, which is going to continue to persist as just a huge need out there. And I think that is going to exist. Also asked about skill gaps. So this is the non-technical skill gaps, and you can see kind of trends over time. Not a lot of shift in these, but what skills are missing in the eyes of employers. So certainly things like communication and teamwork and critical thinking, attention to detail, motivation, many of the professional skills that are not taught as a one-off class, but need to be infused into other things. And this is something we're particularly looking at SUNY, making sure we're infusing these and talking about them very openly. And then on the technical side, you'll see that digital literacy, computer use, top need there. I mentioned a little bit about the training that we have available, but certainly things like Excel and Word, data analysis. So all of these remain really in need as well from the perspective of employers. And again, this is not me just like reporting out. I felt this very, very directly when I oversaw a really big team across the state. The last slide I'll talk about on the data front, and I have a full report with regional breakouts that I'll share as a follow-up as well. So this is the perspective of the job seekers, and this is what job seekers are looking for training in. And it's interesting because certainly digital skills is the #1 thing that job seekers are after, which aligns. But a lot of folks looking for Excel or security, lots of healthcare, like CDL. So many of these align, from my perspective, with the needs out there. But matching individuals to training programs is a huge, huge need. And that's something really one of the big reasons why I'm at SUNY is to help spread the word far and wide about the training options, because we have training for all of these things right now. I will say #5 is a very interesting one, and I bolded artificial intelligence because this in previous years was not in our survey results at all. And suddenly it's one of the top things that people are after. I suspect this year it's going to go even higher on the list. And it's not so much the coding side of artificial intelligence, but it's the how do I leverage it in a job search? How do I leverage it in my everyday life? How do I use it to write emails and write reports and leverage it in my day-to-day work tasks as well? So a lot of interest from job seekers in artificial intelligence. And I think that is another thing that's just going to continue to persist. Another big thing that I have been on a mission for, and certainly SUNY is changing the narrative that this is the only path to career. You finish high school, go to college, and have a career. In many cases, this is the case for folks, and this is quite successful. But if you missed that opportunity or didn't take one of these steps for many reasons, like a lot of people didn't, you feel like you're left out and you feel like you have missed your opportunity, ship sailed, and the reality is so far from the truth. For so many of us, this is reality, that you complete high school, absolutely, but then you might go to get your degree, yes, or you might go get a job and do some online trade or some on-the-job training. You might go do a micro-credential. You might be an apprentice. You might get a certificate, might join the military, internships, all of those things, right, can then build on each other. And we're trying to really strategically align what these look like, because for many folks who might have an associate degree, how do you then advance, in your career and learn new skills if what you got your degree in may not be what you're interested in doing for your entire career? So we have lots of different options out there. I'll also point out that the governor has proposed, and when the budget gets approved, fingers crossed that it's in there, a free community college for those who are 25 to 55 years old. In a number of really high need fields that I think in many cases align with the jobs that you're looking to fill. That's a huge opportunity for folks who might have some of these things, but then they can build into a degree that's aligned with really high demand jobs. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I love conversation, love feedback, love your thoughts and questions as well, is internships and experiential learning. So like we talked about at the beginning, the chancellor has a vision that every undergraduate in SUNY has some kind of experiential learning, like a paid internship. So what do those kind of experiences look like? These are the type of experiences that we're talking about. So yes, for credit or a paid internship, awesome. And we do have some dollars we're putting behind this, by the way. So put a pin in that. We're also looking at things like clinical experiences, right? If you're training for healthcare, clinical experiences are the bread and butter of how you get that hands-on learning in so many instances. Also things like a capstone project at the end where you're doing a really intensive project. Sometimes it's like a field study or a research project, depending on your course or where you're looking and what kind of program you're in. Or sometimes it's more community-based or a service learning experience where you're out there and you're doing some type of work that's a lot more hands-on and based in the community, or even study abroad in many instances is a type of experience that we're looking to venerate in a lot of different ways through counting toward these type of experiences. So when it comes to internships with SUNY and with SUNY students, a couple things I want to talk about. So I think, when you are contemplating, if you already have an internship program, or maybe it's not been successful, or maybe it is successful, you want to expand it, we want to be a partner in that and get our students into your opportunities and connect them in. And by the way, in many cases, students have no idea what opportunities are available to them in their own community where they live, or in their own community where they're going to school, or somewhere in between where they might want to live or work. So I think the where factor is really important, and we need opportunities in every corner of the state. And we also need opportunities in every type of job and every subject area as well. So especially when you're looking at some hard to fill positions, this could be a real interesting partnership. When we need internships year round. For many students, they're taking an internship when they're home during the summer, or maybe some of them don't go home, they're staying on campus during the summer, great opportunity. But also when they're in school, maybe it's like less, fewer hours in the week, it's a part-time internship in the spring or in the summer, or in the winter, in the fall. We can definitely work out, what opportunities look like, depending on your need and depending on when we have students who are available. I also think about the type of skills that you're looking for, the type of, alignment of someone. If someone's looking to be, to work in an internship, does their academic program that they're in have to directly align, or are there specific skills that you might be looking for? I see it as an opportunity, and I'll be very candid with you, I've run many internship programs in the past. I've overseen interns. I know it's not the most easy thing, but I think being really creative around like looking for skill sets, looking for the type of characteristics in a potential intern, we can help match that to some of your potential positions as well. And like I said, we have support in many instances for funding the internships. Yes, if you're willing to pay for the internship, awesome, but we know that's not reality these days. So we are supplementing those internship dollars in many cases in full or partially, or we're providing intern or transportation stipends, things like that to support an intern, especially if the position is not paid. I'll also add that, go back one more. I'll also add that a successful program looks like a lot of different things, but we have some structure that we've started talking about. And again, just food for thought as you're contemplating expansion or creating different programs or continuing programs, maybe from the past that have been successful. Having some kind of clear objective is key. And it's key for you, again, as a former employer who used to run internship programs, having someone sit there and where you don't know what they're doing or why they're there, and they don't know what they're doing and why they're there, not helpful. So having those kind of clear objectives right from the get-go, really helpful. And that's something we can help set up. Also, in many cases, we want a program to align to the type of programs that the student's been learning. It's beneficial to you, right? When they're coming in there and actually aligned, from their classes to the type of experiences you're going to be having. So you're not starting from scratch. People talk a lot about mentorship, but it doesn't have to be all that formal, but some kind of guidance, some kind of like someone they can come to in the office. One of the things that we have seen, and the survey data talks a lot about this, is how not just younger people, but folks when they're starting new jobs or maybe new to the workplace may not understand some basic fundamental stuff around like showing up on time, or around calling out when you're sick, or carrying themselves, or how to deal with coworkers or conflict. So someone they can bounce some ideas off of or get some guidance from in real time really makes for a successful internship experience. Also, what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing, some context, some broader context. I think so many of us, especially when we're doing our day-to-day jobs, don't take that like step back. For an intern who is really new to the world of work and maybe your world of work, allowing them to have that understanding of what the work is that they're doing is so vital and important, because honestly it is really helpful. And students today especially are really, if you have kids, you probably totally get this, young people today especially, really mission driven. They want to change the world, they want to do good. And again, that's why I think this partnership makes so much darn sense. Also, what type of skill exploration or development could look like. So that's really beneficial, yes, to the student for sure, but also to you when you're thinking about the future pipeline and retention and bringing someone back. young people today, as they're going through internships, and we know this through lots of survey data, do internships to figure out what they like and figure out what they don't like, and also to build real world skills. So if you can be that solution at the end of their program, maybe it's the next semester after they graduated, maybe it's the next year after they've graduated, or a couple years later, depending on what grade they're in, what age they are, you could be that permanent employment solution at the end. You could be building that pipeline as you're going through. That could be really huge. I've seen really great successful interns, who I have had carry on to employment because we've really spent that bit of time to help make sure it's really aligned and they kind of get that full experience. The other thing that just to think about when you're talking about internship programs is this is not just to benefit the student at all, right? That's a huge piece of it, but it's also meant to benefit an employer. And I think that type of, creativity around, gosh, I really wish I had someone who could understand how to do this type of coding and help me like write this type of program. Gosh, I really wish I had someone who had expertise in digital marketing who could help run our social media for the summer and like give us a bunch of ideas and write a bunch of copy and content, geared towards something. Gosh, I really wish I had fill in the blank, your challenge areas, places where you like really are in need of some different types of skill sets. Our students can bring that to the table, and I think it gives them that like ability to have something to sink their teeth into, ability to like have something to talk about in future employment when they're going on job interviews, but really helping you in the end is key to a lot of this. So with that, I'm going to end with, I just totally clicked off the end slide. Sorry, yep, thank you. What I'll do is I will end with a QR code. And again, in my follow-up email, I'll send the slides, I'll send the report on the data with regional breakouts, and I'll also send a link to this so you don't have to scan right now. But the goal with this is I want to provide a front door to SUNY. Again, you probably have great relationship with the campus around you. That's awesome. Not looking to upend that or change that at all. I want to be additive with any of this. So if there are things you're interested in, if there are ways you want to get involved, if anything I talked about is of interest to you, this is a form you can fill out. It's a very simple form. Just want to collect what might be of interest to you, and I will get you to the right person. In some cases, it might be me, might be a member of my team, might be a person on a campus. And then we're going to create a feedback loop because I'm not sending you into a black hole, is very much the goal. So with that, I would love any questions that you have, any feedback that you have, and I certainly invite, as we'll send we send the follow-up information for you to get in touch with me for any like future ideas that you have for any of this. But I also just want to thank you for your time today and what you're doing.
Thank you, Chris, for this really wonderful presentation. We so appreciate you taking the time to educate our members, county officials about the state's workforce challenges and how we can take advantage of all the resources that SUNY has available to both meet county workforce needs and those of our local businesses. As a reminder to everyone listening, we'll make the slides and the recording, including this QR code, available after the webinar on our website. You can find that at nisac.org/webinars. We also have the opportunity now to ask Chris some questions and get some feedback directly in real time from you. So you can submit your questions on the side panel of the GoToWebinar platform under that questions box. We have received a few questions already for our members, so I'd like to jump right into those. The first questions we received were about the CDL, or the commercial driver's license. Is CDL an apprenticeship program? How does this work with getting their license at the DMV? Right now, the requirement through the DMV is customers have to attend a training program, and the cost is $5,000 to $10,000. You're not allowed to obtain your license unless you take a training class, regardless of how many years you have driving a dump truck or other vehicle. Do you have a response to these questions?
I do. It's something I'm very intimately familiar with, actually. So a couple thoughts on this. The first is the apprenticeship program does not replace the test, but the apprenticeship program does allow you to gain many of those hours and experience because you have to be working alongside an expert. This program right now is running in a few different regions, and a number of employers are taking advantage of it to kind of help both meet their current and future workforce needs. really one of the big solutions, and I've worked a lot with companies and especially with agriculture on connecting into CDL training programs. So one of the biggest solutions, in every region's a little bit different, but broadly, commercial driver's licenses is something that, depending on the person, we can leverage federal funds through your local workforce board to pay for, and they will often cover a huge chunk of that training cost. So usually it's exactly like, you know, $5,000 in many cases. So they have caps, they have thresholds for some of it, but that can often be a really, really successful place where someone can connect in, get their CDL license, get the training paid for, or most of it paid for. But the registered apprenticeship model is different than that. Because the person's working for the company, they'll take part in that training while they're an employee of the company. So it's kind of two different models to the training, but both ultimately get you to be prepared for that test at the end.
That's great. We received a number of questions about the CDL, so that federal funding is really welcome news.
Now,
Next question.
I was going to say, definitely talk to your local workforce development board. If you don't know who that is, I'm happy to connect you in with someone on that team, because almost all of them have CDL training as an allowable funding.
Fantastic, thank you. Our next question is specifically about assessors. I know from the Assessors Association that there is a significant shortage of assessors with many retirements coming up. Have you had any conversations or done any work on this issue?
I have not done a lot with assessors, but I think that's a great conversation to have. And I'd love to know a little more about what successful programs there are in the state, and if there are need and, you know, maybe there's capacity. Often what I find is that I say young people, but like potential you know, employees in the future, learning about what job opportunities are out there, and then what makes someone really successful kind of through that type of training program. And then we reach out to those people who have those type of skills and have those type of potential interests. I'd love to explore this a lot more, because I definitely have heard assessors being in need and those type of skill sets definitely being in need. But I think it's one of those jobs that people have no idea what it is, or that it's a great career path for them. So I'd love to connect and talk more on that.
Wonderful. We'll look forward to continuing this conversation. Our next question is specifically about the Attain Labs. Is there any plan to expand the Attain Labs beyond urban areas? For example, the North Country, maybe SUNY Potsdam or SUNY Plattsburgh, or can the courses be taken virtually?
Right now, the courses can't be taken virtually. I have feelings on that. So as someone new, I'm asking lots of questions, and including about locations. And I think it's really healthy to look at where they are, where the need is, and where we could potentially be doing more. And if there isn't one there, are there stopgaps that we could put in place that might exist throughout the SUNY network already, that we could make sure that folks have a similar type of opportunity, even if there's not an Attain Lab today in their area. So that's a good one. I'm gonna definitely flag that, because it's not the first time I've heard.
Fantastic. And as a reminder to our audience, you can continue to submit your questions in the panel on the side of your GoToWebinar platform. We have time for a few more, and any that we don't get to, we're happy to follow up with answers to after the webinar. Our next question is about the governor's proposal to provide free community college to select students pursuing degrees in certain high demand fields. If this is to be enacted as part of this year's state budget, how should counties be preparing for this change?
Yeah, so I would say get really excited. One of the things we've actually been doing is working with a lot of partners all across the state preemptively, especially our community colleges, but also folks like our local workforce development boards, the Department of Labor running career centers, and lots of community-based organizations. The biggest hold up in going super far and wide and loud right now is that the budget, the final budget enactment is going to dictate the specific programs, specific thresholds, because the Senate, Assembly, and governor's bills were just a little different. So we don't want to get everybody so excited until we know what the final product is, but I will say we are really ready to roll with that. and much more to come once we have kind of the decisive, here are the exact program areas that are going to count, here's the specific ages that are going to count, the eligibility, those sort of things, if they differ at all from kind of what's been publicly announced. But we have a whole PR campaign ready to roll. We have a lot of websites ready to roll and materials ready to roll, and I'm happy to share that out. And we certainly will include you all when we get the final word to make sure you all have that. But a lot of groundwork being laid, and our community colleges in particular are very interested in making sure that they're prepared to serve adult learners in a way that, and potentially at a scale that they haven't had the opportunity to before. So doing a lot of prep work there for sure.
That's fantastic. And this is something NYSAC is very excited about as well. So for our members, you'll be able to find more information about this proposal, should it be included in the enacted budget, on our website when the time comes and the budget is actually finalized. That'll be available on our website at nysac.org/NYS budget. Our next question is about internships. How can county governments collaborate with SUNY to create customized internship pipelines for hard to fill positions like coroners or public health directors?
Yeah, so the image on your screen, that QR code, I'd love to learn specifically where you are, specifically what you're looking for, and I will get you with the campus and the programs that align with that.
Wonderful. We'll take 2 or 3 more questions with the time that we have left. Is there any funding available through SUNY to offset costs for counties that want to establish paid internship programs or apprenticeships for county government positions?
Yes. It's going to depend on a number of different factors, the type of program, the student who's going into it, but broadly we do have funding that's meant to support that. I will not go out on a limb and say I have a blank checkbook to offer, but we have a lot of different program dollars. What I am trying to save you all is the thing that I hated when I worked at the Department of Labor, which is like, let me have you negotiate and figure out exactly which program it is. I don't want you to do that. I'm not going to waste your time. Let's have a conversation about where you want to focus and let me navigate on your behalf to find the right match and save you all that headache.
I'd imagine this next question is another good one to submit to the QR code on the screen, but I'll read it anyway. How can counties better collaborate with local SUNY institutions to develop certificate programs that are tailored to county government operational needs?
Exactly the same thing. So yeah, no, I'd love to make that connection for sure. And I know the needs, it's interesting because the needs are so regionally specific, but yet pulling out, and I know like NYSAC has the same thing, like you see from a much higher vantage point, the need in Niagara County may be the same as the need in Schenectady County, maybe the same as Nassau County, right? But making those kind of connections, and then from my perspective, aligning community colleges in so many instances or other campuses to help achieve what those certificate programs could look like is like a huge goal of mine.
Awesome. We look forward to working with you on that. We'll end with another question from one of our rural counties. How can rural counties best leverage SUNY's small business development centers to support economic development in rural areas with limited resources?
Yeah, so one of the things that I am really, really passionate about is making sure that folks have opportunities to take advantage of the resources, especially the knowledge resources that exist. So if there is not a small business development center nearby, I want to make sure that you still have access and awareness of the type of services, because it really is intentionally a statewide footprint meant to cover. So not trying to make someone drive an hour just to access their center, but there are definitely virtual options, there are definitely webinar options, there are definitely ways we can connect you into resources. So I would say the same thing. If there's some specific gaps in service, gaps in knowledge, let me know, and I really would like to connect you into the right place, depending on what you're looking for, depending on where you are, because it's just we're intentionally meant to have coverage across the state, and so I want to make sure that's the case.
Perfect. We really encourage all of our members to take advantage of this opportunity to both connect with Chris and to provide feedback for going forward. With that, I want to thank our audience for joining us for this webinar on tapping into SUNY's talent. And of course, special thanks to Christopher White, Vice Chancellor for Workforce Development and Upward Mobility, for this wonderful presentation. Chris, you truly bring a wealth of experience in workforce development, and you're really helping NYSAC to strengthen the relationship between SUNY and all of our counties. So we so appreciate your time today and your answers to these questions. NYSAC is very excited for future collaborations with SUNY, and we encourage all of our members to keep an eye out for future webinars and workshops on how to meet your county's workforce needs. With that, we'll conclude the webinar for today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.